Madam Clerk, are we ready? Start 30 seconds, 30 seconds, 30 seconds. Hey, Methazine. How are you? I got your email. Thank you. Appreciate you. You ready? Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining the City Council of the City of Binghamton work session, 6 p.m., 18 September 2023. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk will call the roll. Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Rezanetti. Councilwoman Riley.
Present.
Councilmember Friedman.
Present.
Councilman Burns is absent. Councilman Strawn.
Present.
Councilman Scanlon
Present.
and President Scringy.
Present.
That's 6 here, 1 absent. Burns.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. This time we will move forward with RL 23-196. And at this time, I'd like to ask Mayor Cram and Dave Sabatka to join us from the Binghamton Rumble Ponies. Evening, Mayor.
Good evening, everyone.
Hey, Dave, how are you? Thanks so much for joining us today.
Hanging in there.
David, as we speak right now, there's a pep rally happening at Rabbitoh Stadium, the first playoff appearance since 2017 for the team. So I'll be there tomorrow night rooting on the team, and we have a stacked team, so we're excited about it. But as I mentioned, David has lost his voice a little bit, so I'll handle kind of just the prep for it, and I'll turn it over to him. So essentially in 2021, City Council passed and the city entered into an agreement with operation of a baseball franchise at city-owned Rabbitoh Stadium. As part of that lease agreement, it identified certain improvements that would be made, as well as other future improvements, both enumerated in terms of drainage, and then any others that are required for Major League Baseball requirements. So we're at the point now where some of the improvements have been made as part of a pretty comprehensive last round, but the drainage component and a couple other components are still needed. So we're looking to modify the bond ordinance to meet and fulfill those requirements as per the lease, and as part of a few years back, with the help of Senator Schumer and the support of this body, keeping a baseball in Binghamton. So that's kind of the framework of what we're talking about here. And I can allow David, if he wants to make any specific comments about really the necessity and everything.
Yeah, and apologies for my voice. Some of you know that I've been going through treatment for throat cancer this summer. So this is actually good compared to where I've been. As the mayor mentioned, when we bought the team, we were certainly cognizant that there were a number of issues with the aging infrastructure at Rabbitoh Stadium that would come to the fore over the next few years, and that Major League Baseball would continue to modify and get more specific about some of their requirements for what they expected out of franchisees in their professional development leagues, which is what they call the minor leagues. The flooding situation has gone from bad to intolerable. We lost several games last year, not because it was raining at game time, but because it had rained earlier in the day and the water just had nowhere to go. Henry Street backed up, excuse me. And as a result, not only could we not clear the water out of the stadium, but we actually had water coming back in from Henry Street, including sewage into the stadium. As you can imagine, this does not impress the baseball powers that be. And because we're playing an opponent in all of our games, they report back to Major League Baseball and the management of the minor leagues on any of the things that happen. So all these things are come to the fore very quickly and we're questioned about. And so we are being questioned, how are you going to mitigate this risk? Because we need to play our games. Part of the contract that we have with you is that you're providing a place for our young players to develop. For them to develop, they need to play their schedule. So in the 2021 agreement, this was such a large issue that it was specifically scoped out. And frankly, as my letter outlined, we would have never undertaken the purchase of a team if we didn't think that the water issue was going to be mitigated. It has turned into somewhat more of a complex problem because of Henry Street. Excuse me, but nonetheless, we think we have a way to fix it and we would like to pursue that. The other major issue that's mentioned in the letter is the scoreboard. The PDL actually doesn't speak to a scoreboard because a scoreboard is so obviously part and parcel of what you expect to see when you come to a sports facility. Our scoreboard, unfortunately, has not performed. It breaks down constantly. And although a majority of those times is not during game time, we've experienced multiples of games, probably high single digits, low double digits, where something is wrong with the scoreboard during the game. The scoreboard is not just for the fans' entertainment. The scoreboard is actually a part of the game that the managers, the players, the umpires use as their tool. And if we can't provide a working scoreboard, we're not fulfilling our obligation under our contract. So we are left in a position now where we are really not in compliance with the PDL. And we need to get these things addressed before opening day. There's some smaller things that also need to be addressed, such as foul pole to foul pole netting. Those are smaller dollar items, but nonetheless are the kind of things where we will not be able to open the ballpark unless they're addressed by April 5th, which is our opening day. So we're, before you asking for funding to fulfill the obligations as laid out in the 2021 lease agreement, but also with haste so that we can get this done in the off season. And with that, I'm going to try to give my voice a rest, but I'm happy to answer any question.
Dave, thank you. And Mayor, thank you for, I don't usually like to overstep, but so just to put this in context, number one, for either or both of you. So it sounds like these issues are number one, they seem to be like Major League Baseball compliance issues, if that's correct. And
That's correct.
thank you, Mayor. And second of all, Dave, going back to some of the water stuff that you've discussed, have you actually been in the situation where games have been delayed, canceled because of any of these water issues?
Yes, Mr.
Okay.
President, as I outlined in my letter, we had several games
Yeah.
that were outright canceled or delayed. And of course, if it's raining outside, people understand that the game is going to be delayed or postponed. When it rained at 2:30 in the afternoon and we can't play at 6:30, people do not understand that. And what's more, the water comes into the clubhouses and causes really a fire drill where we have to move everything out of the clubhouses, then dry it, then try to put it back. So not only our players, but the opposition players, their equipment is getting waterlogged. Their uniforms are getting soaked. And so even if the play field was playable, it's not possible to put on a professional baseball game.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Dave. Thank you for elaborating on that. Council discussion. Councilwoman Riley.
Thank you, Council President. Hello again, Mr. Sabaka, and I'm glad to see you. Thank you for pushing through to even give us as much as you did today. I even said, stop talking because I didn't want you to overstress. But you and I talked a little bit via email because I do believe the Henry Street issue is a city issue. I'm just opposed to using ARPA funds for it when we have infrastructure money. So it was about noticing that the city is responsible for things, but ARPA to me should go to support the people we talk about the most, which is why we receive the money. So I just want to say, I did read through this and we do see that it is a change in terms of, it's a significant change in terms of the bond amount. And what I'm going to ask from Chuck, although we have our budget, I want to be certain we have the most up-to-date totals in terms of our bond, our outstanding bond ordinances, because we did do a lot of refinancing and selling back. So it's up to us to have the best information. But I will say, despite not having that in front of me, I want to support what you do, because when you came, you gave us a lot of time to not only show commitment to this community, but throughout your time owning the Rumble Ponies, you demonstrated that through all of the activities we've held that really prioritize different populations. So if I can support once we know what is outstanding, I definitely will. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Rosenberg.
Hi, thank you for being here. It's good to see you. Quick question. So, okay, we're having this flooding, so we're not in compliance. I'm just wondering, do we know, and maybe you mentioned it and I didn't hear it. I'm curious, do we know where the problem stems from? I heard you say Henry Street, but do we know what about it? What is going on? Or is it the stadium structure in itself that is contributing to this? I don't know if that's a stupid question, but I'm just wondering why this is happening. You know anything
No,
about it?
it's a very good question. And as I allude to in my letter, Councilwoman, there is still some investigation as to what the absolute root cause is, but the slope of the field itself brings water down toward the dugouts, towards home plate from the outfield. In addition, the way the stadium was changed in the mid-teens, the seating bowl, the grandstand, which goes all the way around, was sealed up. So water that used to fall down into the concourse now comes down onto the field. And it creates, when we have heavy rainstorms, it creates like a torrential river coming both from the outfield and then down from the stands. We have tried to come up with solutions that would pump that water out to Henry Street without success, because the Henry Street pipes, as I've been told by city engineers, and Mayor knows a lot more about this than I do, the Henry Street pipes do not have the capacity to take the water. And in fact, because there's more pressure on the Henry Street pipes than in our pipes, we actually start receiving water from Henry Street, which just makes the problem even worse.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Freeman.
Thank you, President Scaringi. I don't have a question necessarily, but I did just want to echo the sentiments of my my colleague, Councilwoman Riley, that it really has been refreshing. I think this season of baseball has been the most, I guess, like mainstream. You know what I mean? People are like talking about it in ways that I haven't seen before. And I do believe that we have a responsibility to invest in not only the infrastructure of the ballpark, but also the surrounding infrastructure where people live and they're experiencing also the issues that you outlined as well. And I believe I have said this on the record before, but like Councilwoman Riley, I didn't agree with the source of the funding, but at the same time simultaneously recognize that these infrastructure investments are absolutely necessary. So this to me seems like a more appropriate funding source. So I do look forward to being able to provide these necessary improvements. So thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Burns.
On the playoffs and the number of people that came to watch baseball this year. So it's great. Now, Mayor, Henry Street's already been financed, right?
The design has.
Right, but we are getting money from, you were saying before about the federal government, that we were getting money to finance the sewer and water.
Yes, so the design has been financed and that will commence over the course of, say, the next 12 months. There was $5 million earmarked in the House Appropriations bill, but it's a one House bill, so it does not have the support of the Senate. So assuming that there is a final budget that happens at some point this year or early next year, however that works, you know, that appropriation would stand to be in there and the city would be recipient of that funding. We did receive congressional earmarks the last time around. And so it's having it in an appropriations bill is very good news. If it's not the full amount of 5 million, you know, we would anticipate millions coming from that process. We just have to hope Washington gets together and passes a budget sometime before the end of the year.
Okay, so when Henry Street is done, then that stormwater pipes that we're putting in Henry Street, that'll help alleviate some of the problem in the park.
That's correct. As of right now, the engineers tell us that we have to find a way to manage the stormwater within the infrastructure, within the footprint of the stadium, slow down the speed that it takes to go through the pipes and out to the river, which this project would do. And then the totality of the Henry Street project would further enhance drainage, potentially even sending it to a different way to get out to the river through downtown as opposed to down the Brandywine Creek, and also mitigate all of the stormwater that's on the street that's contributing to the problems that we face inside the stadium too. That's obviously a more long-term kind of plan than what we're talking about today.
I definitely agree that we should fix the water problem within the park. That's definite. Now, as far as like the scoreboard and all that, a few years ago when Mayor David said that we were going to borrow the money to finance, to make sure that Major League Baseball stayed here, that we were making sure that Major League Baseball approved our stadium. So we put a lot of money into it. And then I was under the impression that we were approved by Major League. Now, other than the flooding and all that, I mean, how didn't we do something with the scoreboard at that time?
It's about 5 seasons old. The biggest issue is that it was basically has been subject to hundreds and hundreds of calls for service and has been failing. So it would be my anticipation and probably more apt for a non-public discussion about ways that the city will look to make sure that we got our money's worth as part of that scoreboard, which did not operate to anyone's expectations when it was first purchased.
So what is the total amount that we're talking about borrowing not at this point to add to it?
Yeah, it's an addition of 4.5 million from the previous bond ordinance, which was done in 2021.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, Dave, as always, Thank you very much, Mayor. Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate you, Dave. Great to see you, my friend. Yeah. This time, like to ask Ron Lake, from engineering to join us regarding RL 23-195. Evening, Ron. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
You have a guest
Nice-
you'd like to introduce us
Nice
to,
to
or
be with you.
you as well, as always? I appreciate you, Ron. Ron, did you have a guest you wanted to introduce, or?
Go ahead.
I'm Mark Budash with Barton and LaJudas. I'm the
Awesome.
project manager on the Main Street project.
Appreciate you, Mark. Thanks for joining us. Ron, the floor is yours.
Okay. On the Main Street corridor project, for safety reasons, as they go through the design, they come up with little areas that we need, like for ADA access that we don't have. We need little pieces of right of way. And these little pieces have been managed to be procured, except in 4 instances. And those are just small areas. And we need them, as I said, for the safety reasons. And what this is, it's for you to say that those small areas are so de minimis that they don't require a public hearing for the general public, because they're just little spots. And I suppose Brian could answer it better than I am, but this is what we're asking for, is that we don't have to hold those public hearings, and that the mayor can go forward and proceed with obtaining those 4 small pieces of right of way.
Thank you, Ron, very much. Ron, really quick, Chair recognizes Corp Counsel.
Just to follow on with what Ron was just saying, if you turn to the very last paragraph of the proposed legislation on page 1 and the succeeding 5 or 6 paragraphs, it explains to you exactly what we're trying to get, what we could not get.
Right.
And if you read the rest of that document, it explains in fairly clear language that it's very small sizes of square feet. It's almost always contiguous. Sometimes it's contiguous to an existing sidewalk. It's always for doing handicap ramps or for making better, more safe crosswalks. Those are characteristics that qualify it under the state law to avoid having to go through the full eminent domain procedure, like we're doing with Kmart, where you have the public hearing, they come in, you guys have a public hearing, it goes down and it goes through, and they can be subject to litigation. It allows us to bypass that because the state recognizes this is just a little tiny taking. It's tiny numbers of square feet. I think the first one is 36 square feet. The next one is 47 square feet, 134 square feet, and 111 square feet. Those are tiny spaces. And they're all for doing crosswalks and other kinds of pedestrian safety improvements along Main Street, which is something that the state wants to encourage us to do rather than discourage us. So that's why we believe that it's appropriate to sign this out and to allow us to bypass those notice provisions. Still have to go through potential litigation with these folks to get them to sign documents, but it allows us to bypass the public hearing process under the EPDL.
Thank you, Corp Counsel. Ron.
Just information,
go
how many owners were we able to make these very same purchases from? And these are the holdouts. We
5.
were to make purchases from 5 other people.
5,
Four.
5, and we have a possibility that I just got one more today.
Okay. One of these 4?
Yes.
Okay.
But we don't have it completed yet, so leave it on there, please.
I think maybe this legislation coming to the floor has spurred 1 or 2 of those people to say, oh, maybe they're really serious about this. I'll deal with them. So we may not do it, but we would ask you to adopt it just the way it is. So that in case they back out or change their mind, that we're prepared to go forward if we need to.
Thank you, Corp Counsel. Ron, anything else from?
No, just that we need to move forward.
Appreciate it. Councilwoman Freed.
Thank you, President Scringy. Hi, Ron. How are
Hi.
you? Hello, Mark. Thank you for being here. So I want to make sure I'm understanding this legislation correctly, because it is a little bit confusing, dare I say. So some of the documents in here appear to be offers to purchase the property. Is that correct?
Yes,
So that,
all 9 of the parcels went through the same procedure.
Okay,
And they were appraised, the purchase price is there.
okay. And so the owners have they've been offered this amount of money thus far and have chosen not to, or
4 out of the 9 have so far chosen not to take that offer.
okay, so 5 of them have been compensated fairly
Yes.
for the parcels.
Yes.
Okay. And so then the 4, sorry, you said 4 out of 9 have accepted?
No, 5 of the 9 have accepted and,
But, okay,
and possibly one more.
okay. So for the ones that have not accepted, then I guess a procedural question, what then we would acquire it via eminent domain?
Yes.
And
That's correct.
that requires, so this legislation is to skip over the public hearing, but what else is required
Well,
for us to,
My understanding of that,
required for us
my,
to
my,
acquire?
my understanding, maybe you can address this more of the eminent the domain procedures that we would actually commence an action. If that it's for successful initial action, we would be given title almost immediately. And then there may be litigation about what the actual value is. Given the potential values for these properties, I don't anticipate there being a lot of people wanting to spend a lot of money haggling over. You could spend more money on the appraisal than this property is worth in total. So I've imagined, practically speaking, if you get past that first hurdle, the court says, yes, that's a public purpose. Here's the title to it. We will resolve these pretty quickly.
You can imagine it on 2 of those 4, we're talking like 40 plus or minus square feet. On the other 2, we're talking like 100 square feet or so. But those are areas where we had already put in sidewalk, although it wasn't our property. So now we want to make it our property because it's needed for safety.
Okay, that's interesting. So the,
In some
Eminent
cases, those sidewalks have probably been there for 50, 60 years, hundreds of years, maybe.
uh-huh. And so you said that the eminent domain would likely be granted if the courts decide that it's for like the public good. Or
Yes,
for a public
that's the main
purpose,
reason for eminent domain. It has to have a public purpose.
right?
Putting in sidewalks and crosswalks and handicap accessible ramps, that's like a slam dunk. Like, I'm sorry.
Right, right.
There's no question. That's a
The-
public purpose.
It's also
Yeah.
part of what we have to do to get DOT approval.
That's the other standard that this is. It's required by the federal government to have the road approved.
Right, okay. All right, I just wanted to make sure I understood this procedurally, like where we are and what we need to do. All right, thank you for the clarification.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Riley.
Thank you, Council President. Hello, gentlemen. Thank you for being here, as my co-counsel person said. Now, again, here we are with the eminent domain discussion. The property owners that have not responded are still subject to taxation for the land that they own, correct?
Yes,
Even if it's a small portion, they will not then be refunded for the land that they pay taxes on, despite it being a small percentage. If we go forward with using eminent domain to obtain the property, correct?
I would assume, but it's such a small piece of property that it probably has no relevant value to the overall value.
Dollar value versus,
But which would
Feeling.
be more important? Somebody trip and fall on the sidewalk in front of you, or we make it handicap accessible?
no, now listen, we did the walk in District 3. You remember, and it took us several hours because of
Right.
all the issues, but if the city put a sidewalk on property they didn't own, the landowner is not liable. That's the city's fault,
No.
right?
Right.
Okay, so I just wanted clarification. And so we've done our due diligence in terms of reaching out to, I looked at these names here on the list, and most of them are businesses. There are some names I can't assume that they're personal
Right.
properties, and I really can't see these maps, even with my glasses on, okay? So I know you're saying the amount of land is negligible. I mean, it's minimal, but it's a personal thing. You know, I just want
It is.
our residents to understand what the city is saying they want to do because they've already done something and then make it right because now we're making it handicap accessible.
Well,
Right.
if I may address that question.
Okay.
The sidewalks were probably built well before the ADA was ever a thought in anybody's mind. They were
Right.
probably built back.
But they
in
were
the
built
40s
on
and
the
50s.
property.
Yes, and there probably was some kind of agreement back in the 40s and 50s that allowed us to do that.
Oh,
That never got recorded or wasn't done properly, or it's in city council books. It's the type of thing we can't find. It happens quite frequently, actually, throughout the city. And the compensation that's being recommended ranges from $400 at the low end, $500,
to
$800, and
$1,600.
$1,400.
Yes, I.
From
did.
doing tax assessment cases, I can tell you that almost all the value on a parcel of the city is in the building on the parcel itself
Mhm.
and maybe the associated
Land.
parking lot. There's a principle in more in rural communities, but it sort of applies here. If you have a house with 300 acres, 95% of the value of that parcel is in the house and the surrounding acre. The rest of it is almost the dollar per square foot. It's the market. You have more of something, it's worth less. So that just numbers of vacant square feet plummets down. You could probably chop these little sections off this property and the assessment needle would move very, very minimal.
Which we know it.
And then
we
you
don't
do it
talk
by
about
this, and then you do the taxes by the
That-
thousands per property. You're only gonna, maybe you chop 1,000 off, that's $76 reduction.
Again, we won't talk about assessments
Yeah, I know.
because, we have talked about.
I
the
know, you want to talk
assessing.
about assessment,
So
but
do
that,
we
but
want to open that can of worms up right
you
now?
were
Because,
talking about.
okay,
tax-
but I just
tax-
wanted to,
okay.
again, think about how this will be played in the public. Okay? Because people don't understand what we're asking for and we've already. Okay, so thank you. That concludes my question. And stealing land.
I hope not.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you, Corp Council. Yeah. Oh, Heavenly Father. Any other discussion? Thank you both very much. Appreciate you.
Thank you. If you don't mind, I'll stay here and play Billy.
I was actually, thank you, Ron. I was just about to ask. So Mark, thank you very much. Appreciate you. Thank you. Ron, we've got 23-197 as it relates to the sewage treatment plant. Floor is yours.
Okay, in a nutshell, what we need to do is transfer $250,000 to make repairs at the treatment plant. And what has happened is that where new construction was butted up against the old construction, there's a joint there. We actually call that the H line. And the seal that was put in between the two of them has failed in many places. And it's in almost inaccessible areas. So it's really some safety reasons. And we've had to go through DEC and they've had to agree to the plan of how we're going to do it. We have to have standby pumping because some of these are channels and we have to feed around them to keep the other cells alive with nutrients. So it's a tough procedure. It's called M-seal. And in order to replace it, you have to go in and you have to remove the seal, then grind the area that gets affixed to. And then you have to put down a mastic or an epoxy. And that has an 8-day cure time. And so we need some good weather, but it takes a lot of time to do it. It's expensive. It's in hard to get to areas. And so that we don't have to go back. I hope in my lifetime or your lifetime, we're putting another membrane over top of it to secure it. And that membrane has a life of 30 years. And even though I don't necessarily trust the M-seal, the warranty that we got with it, all they'll do is give you the seal. We have to do all the work to remove and install the old seal. And that's why we're looking at a pretty expensive project because it's in those inaccessible areas. That takes a lot of planning. We have to put in planking and block off the flows so they can go in and work. This is really a tough assignment.
Thank you, Ron. Council discussion. Seeing none, Ron, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. This time we have RLs 23-199 and 200. Ask our Deputy Mayor Megan Hyman to join us. Well, these are the last. Evening, Megan. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. Thank you for joining us.
Sure.
Floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. RL 23-199. This is essentially just an add-on to an RL that City Council approved earlier this year to accept grant funds from Broome County for some pedestrian safety improvements in the area of MacArthur and Binghamton High School. The county is offering the city an additional $10,000 to add signaled crosswalks near both of those schools and some additional pedestrian safety improvements.
Thank you, Megan. Discussion? Seeing none? Megan, the floor is yours.
Okay, RL 23-200. This is authorizing the mayor to enter into a supplemental agreement with EDR related to the work that the firm is doing on the Ross Park restoration and relocation plan. The State Historic Preservation Office, or SHPO, is requesting a further assessment and analysis of the condition of the structure covering the carousel. So the supplemental agreement will allow EDR to do that work and the design of a new structure should it be determined that it needs to be built where it's relocated.
Thank you, Megan, very much. Council discussion? Councilwoman Freed.
Thank you, President Sturgey. Hello, Deputy Mayor. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. So I did not look this up before the meeting, but I'm wondering, was the carousel shelter at all part of the original agreement?
Yes, my understanding is it was, based on that work done in the original agreement. It's looking like it would be cost prohibitive to relocate it with the, along with the carousel. And instead, I think we are looking at, relocating the carousel and building the structure anew. So that's the reason, my understanding, that's the reason why SHPO is requiring that further assessment of the structure. And that new design of the new structure to make sure that it aligns with historic preservation standards.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other discussion? Councilwoman Burns.
I just want to say I love the idea of the new structure and moving the carousel.
Yeah, we hope it helps.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Riley.
Thank you, Council President. How are you?
I'm well. How are you,
Good,
Councilwoman?
good. Okay, again, like my other council member colleagues said, now I'm a bit confused because NYSHPO was helping, we received a grant. Now, are we asking, because of the grant response, are they giving us more funds or we're expending more funds to meet their requirements?
No additional funds. This additional assessment will be covered by the existing grant funds.
But the development of the shelter, because they said our current shelter was in such bad condition. I believe it says that we now need to pay or allocate additional funds, 33,000 up to 33,000. Correct?
So that change order figure, I believe, is just for the additional assessment and new shelter design.
Okay.
So that work will be covered by the grant funds that did the relocation and restoration plan.
Okay, so there will, at this point, everything has been covered. We're not asking for any additional funds.
That's my understanding. And in fact, it's our belief based on the work done already by the firm that building the new shelter will actually be a cost savings because it would be so expensive to piece by piece take it down and move it.
Awesome. Thank you for clarifying.
Sure.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other discussion? Seeing none. Megan, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. All right, colleagues, if as we're moving toward the end of the agenda here, if you would please take a few moments just to look at the very last page of our work session packet. I want to thank our I want to thank our clerk's office for making this a priority and moving this forward. So thank you, Janine. Thank you, John. This is a draft calendar for fiscal year, or I guess technically also calendar year 2024, starting obviously for next term. We want to try to get this moving as forward as quickly as possible. You'll notice we also followed the same color coding schematic that we adopted last year in relation to putting the budget dates in yellow on the actual calendar in and of itself. And so with council support, I'd like to move this forward to the next business meeting so we can vote on this and get this approved so we can get this responsibility taken care of and publicized for next year. Any discussion, council? Yeah, no, go ahead.
So
Yeah,
I
I
did,
wanted to wait a minute or so. I thought maybe might be checking on some dates or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
so
that's fine.
I did check beforehand, but I'm double checking now the Jewish high holidays that appear to eh, not to say, eh, that's not a major holiday, I would say. So the two major Jewish holidays do not conflict with any of these. with
Rosh
these
Hashanah or
dates.
Yom Kippur.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's correct.
From a scheduling perspective, that looks okay. Excellent.
Sure
Thank
does.
you. Appreciate it. Councilwoman Resident, anything in relation to Orthodox New Year? Thank you, Councilwoman. Anyone else? All right, Madam Clerk, Deputy Clerk, thank you. Let's move this forward and we can we'll move this forward to the next business meeting and then we'll put it for a vote to formally accept it. Thank you again, both of you, for your hard work on this. All righty. Madam Clerk, anything in relation to pending ledge from the clerk's office?
No, other than just setting a public hearing for the bond ordinance that we talked about tonight.
And we'll do that at Wednesday's work session.
Yep.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Council, anything for the clerk's office in relation to pending ledge? All right, seeing none, Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. Councilwoman Riley.
Yes, thank you. I raised my hand.
ahead.
Okay, so there was discussion.
Yep.
And I'm not sure if there was follow-up. I didn't see an email, but remember something about planning, council, planning committee
Yes,
discussing.
review of uses for
Absolutely.
industrial. So yeah, I'm currently working with Councilwoman Resinetti on that. As
Okay.
soon as I get something finalized, I'll communicate that forward to the body.
Are you guys going to conduct a meeting or no?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, I think that could be a good avenue to go. So just
I just didn't want it
no,
in the
no, of
last
course.
minute and missed it.
No, of course.
Okay.
And keep in mind, obviously, regardless, not even if it's just planning, but as just as a generality, my general prospect is if there is a standing committee of the Binghamton City Council, regardless of whether you're a sitting member of that committee or not, of course, you are always welcome to join and provide any discussion points or any input. Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. So as that circles around, definitely we'll communicate that outward. But I appreciate that. Definitely. Anything else? Councilor Ryan?
I also would ask that we don't try to schedule during this budget season. You know, we're moving into budget.
It's coming up in a couple weeks. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I think
So-
27th, I think, is our first day. So yeah, it's probably 2 weeks. It's right around the corner. Chairman Scanlon will lead us through finance and budget. Excellent. Councilwoman Riley will support you 100%. I think we should be good there. Anything else? Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Motion by Councilwoman Riley and seconded by Councilman Scanlon, the perfect pair. We are adjourned.